Well, as part of our social history, we'd better look at some of the things that kids got up to in the 1970s. Antisocial behaviour? Well, not that bad, but some naughty tricks and deeds that British kids did indeed get up to, and considered sometimes risky compared to today. Were they bad compared to today? Did they ever get away with it? Do you remember your parents saying, "I know what you're up to. We did the same, what you're doing now, when we were kids"? But we thought we were so clever, didn't we? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Mischievous kids of the 1970s. So let's get on with it. Now, I'm not accusing anyone. This is a well-researched article from people's childhoods that I have interviewed. I'm lying. They are from my own memory. I've watching other kids, of course, doing things that they hadn't ought to do. Did you do these things? Knock a door, Ginger. That's what we all called it, knocking on somebody's door and simply running away, and getting brave enough to knock the doors of those that we knew would chase us. And boy, did we run, but it was the best exercise ever. Then we go home to our parents, and they knew we'd done it. Did we not realise that parents actually spoke to each other? One kid in our area thought it'd be a good idea to tie string to the door knocker and knock the door from a distance so he didn't have to run away. The problem is that it took him longer to set up the trick than just to knock the door and run. He got caught trying to tie the string to all these knockers in the street. He was under the impression he could knock all the doors at the same time. It wasn't me. Selling your school pudding or dessert that you had for your dinner to another student for a few pence to spend on something else. Many would buy a single match and a cigarette from the local shop, and they had no qualms in selling it to you either. So what was wrong there, eh? Irresponsible selling, that's what I call it. I used to spend my ill-gotten gains on trump cards or stickers to stick in my albums, such as football stars. Abusing the telephone. This was before caller display and easy traceable telephone calls. Kids calling the operator with nuisance calls saying things like, "Get off the line, there's a train coming," or "Would you like to be on TV? Well, go and sit on your seat." Sometimes from a call box or someone else's home. If you could get around that old phone lock, well, you could. You just simply tap the top of the receiver so many times to tap out the number. 1 tap for 1, 2 taps for 2, etc., and 10 taps for 0. Nicking apples from trees. Scrumping, in other words. One neighbour had a plum tree near where we used to live, and we used to scrump from there. We got chased once, and we managed to get all the way home, but Mother found the plums that we thought we'd well hidden, and she threatened to tell the neighbour, and we were told to take the fruits back. In those days, other adults were able to discipline kids verbally, and if you told your parents of this, you'd get it from them too. But those plums, they never got returned. In fact, the next time we saw them, they were baked in a lovely pie, and it was delicious. Now, do you remember taking those old pop bottles back to your corner shop for a few pence in return? Well, I heard that some kids used to sneak round the back of the shop from the yard and grab the empty bottles and have the cheek to take them round the same shop again and get the deposit. Those pesky kids. But at least they had the courtesy to spend their fraudulent cash in the same shop. Now, were you ever bought an item of clothing by your parents that you absolutely hated? That jumper or that skirt that you knew other kids would call you out for. So what did you do? Hide it away at the back of the airing cupboard or under the bed and hoped it would never show its face again? Of course, it always did. But you do your best to wear it out as quickly as possible, or lose it, or have to wait to grow out of it. Those days, you'd accidentally break one of your brother's or sister's toys in their absence. Well, first of all, you shouldn't have been using it in the first place. And if they found out, you get into strife. So what did you do? Option 1, own up and take the grief from all the family. Option 2, hide it and hope that they never find it. Or option 3, blame it on one of your friends. Well, the comments section is waiting for you. Remember, I've got to know a few of you from your comments, so I'll know. Who's been drawing obscenities on the catalogue pages again? Mother would shout. You know the pages I'm talking about? The underwear section. Terrible child. It will be that naughty teenager that's cricked his neck to look at the top shelf of the newsagents at that sort of paraphernalia. You know the type. We used to fill up empty washing up liquid bottles with water and jet spray people passing by. Now you'd have thought the summer of 1975, which, believe it or not, had hotter days than the scorcher of 76. People would enjoy being covered in water, to keep them nice and cool. No, they did not. And even though we were hidden behind the wall, it was our giggling that gave us away. No wonder why kids in the 1970s were so fit. We did a lot of running. This is a story that my mother told me, and I've got to tell you it. She decided she hated one of the teachers, so she hid an onion somewhere in the class, so the teachers couldn't find it. Now, because it takes so long for an onion to go bad ways, there was no pinpointing the blame. But after a certain amount of time, this onion began to rot, and it began to really smell. Stronger and stronger, until one day the environment people of the time came in and they managed to find it. But there was no way they could blame my mother. I like that story. Of course, we were let out of school gates back then for lunchtime, and we'd hang around the chip shops or the corner shops, and we'd go to the park, buying all the wrong things such as sweets or comics with our dinner money, and probably playing pranks on each other that would consider today to be bullying. Not the bullying that's nasty, that should be eradicated for good, but just teasing. Mud fights and snowball fights probably considered assault today, and maybe a cheeky comment to an adult passing by, which we were greeted by a threat of a clip round the ear. It was harmless banter, but we knew when to shut up. Sneaking in class during breaks and writing light obscenities about the teachers on the blackboard and wondering how they knew it was us. They marked our exercise books for sure they'd know our handwriting. Or worse still, some would plant one of those awful stink bombs either in a classroom or somewhere around the school. They were awful, and they took ages for that smell to disperse. Do you remember giggling in class of biology lessons when it came to the human reproduction system? Well, we normally had a stuffy cane happy teacher with a brown jacket with those leather elbow pads, giving us information that clearly embarrassed us, and of course we would giggle. Those diagrams were so basic they were almost like matchstick figures. And we were sent out the room. And in science lessons there was always that kid that would light the Bunsen burner to his posterior and, ignite 'em to get the gas. But one yell from the teachers and we just clammed up in silence. Although we did get up to stuff which was naughty and maybe considered as antisocial behaviour, we knew exactly when to fall in line. And I can't remember how many times our peers mentioned Borstal to keep us in check, and it did work. Playing trotter, skipping lessons, you were bound to be caught when the schoolman or the attendance inspector visited your house. My parents tended to argue our innocence, but only to discipline themselves when they'd gone. They'd never let anyone know that their kids would do anything naughty. Family unity? Mostly their pride, I think. Playing music loudly if we were upset with our parents. It wouldn't be the music that they liked, and in some cases we weren't too keen on it ourselves, just as long as it was loud. And they'd come in the bedroom and turn it down, and you'd slowly turn it back up gradually, hoping they'd not noticed. Our taste in music was part of our identity, a rebellious spirit in a way, and pointed out in some ways our individuality, even though they were basically following a trend. But it was good to rebel in a positive way, because people that rebel cause change, and some of those changes are for the good. Now, I got that off a film, To Sir With Love with Sidney Poitier. I love that film. How many of you sneak clothes in your bag to change into when going out with friends? Probably more the girls that did this. Those sensible shoes and those long skirts changed to something more modern. or those horrible national health glasses hidden away and never worn in public, or makeup applied when on the bus or in a cafe toilet. It was so important to keep up with the fashions, even though we must have looked ridiculous at the time. But we were growing up, and our parents were older in their years in some cases. And that was because of their youth was just after the war, or the years of austerity, which gave a much stricter upbringing than we were ever having. The make-do and mend years to some degree had gone, albeit many of us did have the hand-me-downs, and we did have the make-do and mend even into the 70s. But we just wanted to fit in. Well, I don't think we're all as bad when we hear about these little stories, but it's important to know that life wouldn't have changed if we hadn't have done something to make our lives better for ourselves. I wanted to finish off by when we talked about playing trotter. When we got into our third year at school, we got to choose our own subjects. So I hated PE. I was absolutely rubbish at it, I've got to be honest. I was one of these people, five-a-side, always the last to be chosen. Yeah? So I looked at the timetables and I'd realised that I had got PE lessons at the very same time as somebody else had got French. And it was the beginning of the term, and I wondered if I turned up at that French lesson instead of going to my own PE lesson, whether I'd get away with it. And I did. So every time I went to that French lesson. So in other words, I was doing two French lessons at the same time, my own and the other one that was on somebody else's timetable. And it turned out that I'd won the best award for the area of being the best French speaker at school. Well, obviously that's going to happen. I was getting 8 French lessons a week and nobody ever twigged. And whether it was because I was clever or whether it was simply because I was that rubbish at PE that the teachers didn't particularly miss me, that was probably what the answer was. So I didn't play trotter, I just decided to do another lesson instead. And I never got caught. Anyway, that's me done for today. Thank you so much again for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Check out my other videos. I have got other videos that people haven't watched very much, and one of them is the 1960 how much a pound was worth and what you could get. So anyway, thanks again and bye for now.